Alright, hello once again, Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College, and I've been going over the PowerPoint presentations for Murachs, HTML5, and CSS3 3rd edition for the AWD, Application and Web Development, AWD1000 Web Technologies class. I'm up to Chapter 11 of 19. And in the last chapter, when I created the tables, the table example, alright, I'm going to actually copy all of it, paste it in, and I'm going to get rid of the guts, so to speak. So for now, I'll keep those style tags, but I'm going to remove everything that's inside of them. And I'm going to get rid of that figure and everything that's the table in here, which means in the end here, I don't have very much left, and that's good. It's actually what I want. I'm going to change this to form example. All right, and when I create these, like with the table, I'm pretty much doing it off the top of my head, so sorry if at least occasionally I come up with or I have mistakes or whatever. So let's come in here and let's create a form. Well, forms go within form tags. So that's the start. Now there's a lot of stuff we can put in here. We'll talk about some of these as we go. All right. So I'm going to come in here. I'm going to say I'm going to make a form that's going to have some fields in here. So this will say label for equal first name. Now I'll just put a few things in here just so you can see it. All right, so we'll put in last name, address, and of course I'm going to have to make a bunch of changes here. City, state, and zip. All right, again, this is by no means complete. All right, in fact, right now it's not at all looking the way I want it to look, but we'll fix it in just a minute. All right, so we've got a label, and under that label we're going to have input type equals text. All right, ID equals first name. Oops. Name equals first name. Okay, oopsie. So let me copy that down. So this will now be last name. And that should be a lowercase f. This will be last name. Okay, let's come down here. Now this is not at all going to be pretty when I get done, just so you know. We haven't done any CSS, so it's going to look pretty bad actually. We'll make a lot of changes to it as we go through this, okay? All right. So this will be state. First name, last name, city, state. I guess I have one too many in here. I don't know what I did, but it's okay. And this will be zip. We'll just say here zip code. Zip code. Let's be a little bit more aesthetic here. We'll put colons after each one of our labels. And you're saying, what is this all going to do? I'll be literally done in about 30 seconds. All right, so this will have to say zip, and this will have to say zip. All right, remember, absolutely no CSS has been applied to this, but let's take a look at it anyway. And there it is. Now, I goofed up. I got first name twice, plus I didn't put any line breaks in, so let's put in those. So this should say last. Okay, and I need a line break here. And here, here, here. That should be good. We can put one after the end, but that's fine. So let's do that. All right, let's go back and refresh our page. And that's what we've created. Again, it kind of looks like an organized mess, for lack of better words, but it'll look nicer as we go along. First of all, let's go and add 2 of these, because that'll start making this look a little bit nicer. It won't totally finish it, but it'll start, because it'll provide some spacing. Do we have to do it this way? Heck no. In fact, typically we wouldn't do it this way. Typically, we would do this using CSS. All right, but now at least we've got a little more form to this. All right. Also, what you typically see at the bottom of forms. So I'm going to put in here input type equals submit. Submit. And let's put in about 3 blank spaces. Again, NBSP is non-breaking space. So after that, I'm going to put an input type equals reset, and we will say there reset. All right, so what did we do? What did we change? Always best to make a change and run it again. We had, whoop, oh, that's right, I don't want it. I goofed up. I don't need those words there. So what I should have said here is value equals submit. And this should have said value equals reset. That's what we should have done. All right. Let's look at it again. Much better. All right. Now, there's not a lot of substance to this. It's not going to react. It's not going to do anything special. Stuff isn't really lined up perfectly. We'll address all that stuff as we go on. But what I wanted to show you is forms go within form tags. All right. The only type of input I've used here has been text input, but there's other kinds you can use. All right. And oftentimes you have buttons at the bottom. So keep that in mind. This is maybe the longest chapter in the book, 94 slides, so the chances are pretty good I'll have to break this up into 2 or more presentations. So let's get started. Looks like we've got 4 applied objectives and 8 knowledge objectives. As I do always. So this will just say forms. And if you're saying, why are you even doing that? It's political in nature, so, all right. So our 4 applied objectives: use HTML to create a form that includes any of the form controls, including the newer HTML5 controls. Use CSS to format a form and its control. Use HTML5 attributes and CSS selectors for data validation. Use an HTML form to add a search function to a website. Describe the use of an HTML, those are our 4 applied. Our 8 knowledge objectives: describe the use of an HTML form for initiating client-side processing or submitting data to a web server. Describe the get and post methods that can be used to submit a form. Describe the use of any of the form controls. Describe the use of tab order and access keys. Describe the use of the HTML5 autocomplete require and pattern attributes. Describe the use of regular expressions. Describe the use of a data list. And finally, describe the use of a form that provides a search function for a website. Now, that's a lot. All right. So we start with the attributes of the form tag. I didn't put any of these in. The name attribute is the name that you can use by client-side or by server-side code. So the first thing I want to do in here, I'm just going to name my form sign-up form. So name equals sign-up form. Okay, I can call it whatever I like. It really and truly doesn't matter. Next, action. Action is the URL that will process the data from the form. So normally what you're going to do is you're going to put in here, and I'm going to move this into several lines just so you can see all of it. You say action equals, and you would say something like process form.php. Now if I do that now, I don't have a file that says process form.php. Okay, so if I click the submit button, it's going to give me an error message. It's no big thing, that's fine. The method, you say either method equals get, or you say method equal post. What's the difference between those? All right. If you set it to post like this, it typically means you're trying to post or send information to the server. All right. If you're accessing information from the server, you'll just say get. All right. And then finally, we've got target equal. So if we want to open this on a new page, we can say blank here. All right. Now, I showed you here type equal text. There's several other types, including button, text, and checkbox. We'll look at all of those as we go on in here. Notice there's a name property. All right, it says that can be used to refer to it in client-side or server-side code. Well, I use the name and the ID property. Disabled, which is a Boolean, which means it can be true or false, and it grays out a control if the control has been disabled. Read-only is a Boolean that if it's true, it means you can't change the value of something. So a form contains one or more controls. You should code the name attribute uniquely for each form and control, and the ID for that matter. When the form is submitted to the server for processing, the data in the controls is sent along with an HTTP or Hypertext Transfer Protocol request. For the get method, what you're going to see is the information is going to be up here in what's called the query string. Okay. All right, so as we peruse our way on through this chapter, I just mentioned these to you. This is very similar to the form I just showed you. That form has got what in a text box with named email and a submit button. They don't even use a label, which you really should always do, but that's fine. Now, if you type this in, it says, please enter your email address. The information that gets sent, if you notice right here, this is says method equal post. All right. Well, if method had equal get, this is what would be sent across. When you do a get, the information actually goes into the address bar with the URL, and the stuff that comes after the question mark is called the query string. So that's the information that gets sent. All right, we already mentioned some of the attributes that you can have. As I mentioned, type can say submit, reset, button, image. There's quite a few. Value is the value that's displayed inside of a button. You saw that when I put the value in for reset and for submit. Source and alt and height and width are used for image buttons. What's an image button? That's more an image button right there. All right. Some of the attributes that you can use for an actual text field in here are shown on the page. For the, I've used text, but notice there's also password and hidden. So if you look at the example that we have in here, the one we have been using, our example, this one, if I come back in here and just, for example, if I want to type in some information, I can put whatever I want in here. Now, if I click submit, I'm going to get an error because it's going to look for that processform.php file and it won't find it. Notice it's taken all the information and it's put it in here in what's, again, called the query string. All right. And if I click reset, pretty obvious what happens. All right, but I'm going to come in here and I'm going to, after my last name, I'm going to add a new field. So I'm going to just literally grab everything that's in here for last name and copy it. And I'm going to put in here type equal password. And I'm going to say here password. And we'll call it password. What I'm trying to show you here, though, is if you take a look, now when I refresh, notice after the last name I'll have a new field called password. When I put stuff in there, since I've got to type password, it doesn't actually show what I'm typing. All right. Again, I'm just going to keep plodding along here. Okay, we've got value. We already mentioned that. Max length is the maximum number of characters you can enter into a field. Size is how big the field actually is on the screen. Autofocus says that you want to set the focus on that when the page is loaded. Well, if you notice, if I come through here and I refresh, my cursor isn't right here, and that's what I like. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, in fact, I'll put the cursor back over here so it's on the wrong field. But I'm going to come back here to my code, and where I've got first name, okay, all this stuff here. Again, I can put this over multiple lines, and I oftentimes do, because it makes it easier to read. But I'm going to now say here, autofocus. You'll notice that's a newer word, and you can see that it's not red like the other ones are, but watch what happens. So I want to go back here. You notice that my cursor's in the wrong place, and when I refresh, boom, it's in the right place. All right? There'll be a lot more things like this we're going to be looking at as we go through this. There's also placeholder. Now, today, many people don't use labels anymore because they'll say something like this. And again, it's easier to show you. That's why I built the form to begin with. So for, let's say, well, let's use the password one here. Okay? You got 4 equal password. No, I don't want to change that one. I'm sorry. So over here, we've got type. We've got name. I'm going to put in here placeholder. Again, you'll notice it's equal. I guess that one is red now. I didn't think it was. Enter password here. All right. Doesn't look any different, but watch this field once I refresh. There you go. Now that's gray. It doesn't look like it, but it's gray. And as soon as I put my cursor there and start to type, that enter password will go away. And when I remove it, it'll come back again. That's just helper text or whatever you want to call it. So there's several types of text fields. The text, the password, and the hidden are probably the most common. A normal text field, one that's just of type text, accepts input from the user. Then when the form is submitted, the name and the values are passed to the server. A password field is, it doesn't show you it. In our case, it puts bullets there. In the olden days, it would put in asterisks. And a hidden field is something that doesn't show on the form itself. So let's say that I was doing a form here for a pizza place, and you could put all your different stuff in here, and I would have your subtotal, your tax total, and your final total. I probably wouldn't take a field like tax rate and put it in there because that wouldn't make any sense. I would have that be a hidden field as an example. All right, next are radio buttons and checkboxes. Again, we'll just keep adding things to our own field. All right, or to our own form, I should say. So, attributes for radio buttons and checkboxes: type, so type is radio, or type is checkbox. Value is what you want to put in there, and checked is whether or not it's actually checked. All right, now I mentioned pizza, and they actually put it in these examples right here. So let's add this stuff. We'll just add all the stuff they have here. Why? Because I just really and truly don't feel that much like typing right now. No, I guess we want crust in here too. So we'll put this down near the very bottom, right up above the buttons that we have in there. So right up above these two buttons. We'll add it right here. Now it's going to look pretty ugly, so let's clean it up a little bit. Right, so crust. I think we can put this all in one line. We will fit all this on one line. I just want you to be able to see what's happening in here. Deep dish, hand tossed, a couple blank lines, then toppings. Now notice these are radio buttons, which means that you can only have, it's from the old days of AM radio where you could only select by pressing a button one station at a time. All right? And that's where this naming convention and stuff comes from. Now, this other one is a checkbox, so we can choose none of these, one of these, any two of these, or all three of these. So notice radio buttons and checkboxes. Take a quick look at what the difference is between them when I take this and refresh. All right? So there's crust and there's toppings. I need to put another blank line there, but that's no big thing. All right, to make this a little easier for us to read, let's go back. And on all these where we've got two BR tags, let's just change it to one. It's going to look a little more cramped, but that still is fine. All right, and after our toppings, so before our buttons, let's put in a couple BR tags here. So did we make it look nicer or did we make it look worse? Okay. So now you can see the radio buttons that are right here. So I can choose any one of these. Okay, you might notice that deep dish on here was set to checked, which means that's the default one. If we had not said checked by any of them, none of them would be checked. So we can only check one of these at a time. They're really what are referred to as a radio button group. But for toppings, I could have none, any one, any two, or all three. I'm going to stop right here and continue on in the next video.